Did you even catch your own words, Dad? The question slipped out before I could hold it back, but his expression only grew colder, more rigid. You're nothing but uneducated garbage, he said, each word precise, slicing me away from the family with every sound. Mom didn't even let him finish. Get out. You're nobody, she hissed, her voice cracking just enough to hint she'd crossed a line, though her pride wouldn't let her retract it. The room felt heavy, thick with years of unspoken grudges and quiet rivalries. My throat stung with salt, not from crying, but from choking back every truth I'd buried to hold this family together. I stared at the worn linoleum under my feet, tracing its fractures, their voices fading into a muted hum. My thoughts drifted to the life they didn't know about, the one I'd carved out in secret. No degrees framed on my walls, perhaps, but $60 million in my account, every dollar earned silently, purposefully, far from their judgment, far from their pity. I didn't argue or plead. I just gave a nod and headed for the door. The winter chill stung my skin outside, but it was nothing compared to the frost in that living room. I slid into my car, the engine's low rumble drowning out Mom's voice, still shouting, not to call me back, but to make sure the neighbors knew she was right. I drove in silence, city lights streaking by. In the rearview mirror, their porch faded until it vanished completely. By the time I hit the town's edge, my decision was made. Tomorrow, I wouldn't just walk away. I'd disappear into a world they never thought I could reach, let alone dominate. That night, as waves roared outside my window, I gazed at the horizon and murmured, they'll understand soon enough. The sun rose over the Atlantic in a golden streak, the kind of dawn that whispers of hidden possibilities. I stood barefoot on the balcony of my Florida beachfront estate, salt air weaving through my hair, the ocean's pulse washing away the chaos I'd left behind just 12 hours ago. Below, waves caressed the white sand, and the pool reflected the climbing sky. The faint hum of the staff downstairs, coffee brewing, breakfast being prepared, drifted up, but I stayed still, letting the water's rhythm erase everything else. This was my haven, my reward for years of staying quiet while they ridiculed me, for nights spent studying market trends while they swore I'd never succeed. I turned my phone in my hand, its screen flashing with missed calls and texts. None from my parents, naturally. They'd probably pictured me sleeping in my car, begging for scraps. Instead, I opened my banking app, the numbers, known only to me, proof of the empire I'd built. Tech ventures, real estate deals, investments in brilliant minds the world overlooked until I stepped in. I learned early that power isn't loud. It's quiet, exact, patient. After breakfast, I wandered through the marble corridors, my fingers brushing the cool stone walls. Every detail, the Italian chandeliers, the hand-carved mahogany doors, was chosen with purpose. A home, yes, but also a declaration. That afternoon, I called my realtor. Get the movers to bring everything from storage. I want this place fully ready in a week, I said, my voice steady, though inside I could sense the waves this would stir once they found out. The ocean breeze trailed me as I settled on the terrace, laptop open. A headline caught my eye. A business deal I'd orchestrated for months had just gone public. My name wasn't attached, never needed to be. 3 weeks. That's all it would take for my absence to consume them. 3 weeks until the silence shattered. And when it did, I wouldn't be the one knocking. It began with a text from my cousin Mia. Where are you now? I heard something wild. I stared at it, my coffee cooling in my hands. Wild. That's how they'd label anything they couldn't grasp, anything that didn't fit their tidy narrative of me as the failure, the letdown. I replied with 2 words, Florida coast. No emojis, no details, just enough to spark her curiosity. By evening, the tide was turning. My brother's fiancé liked a photo on my private Instagram. A neighbor from my parents' street sent a friend request she'd never dared before. Dad called. I didn't pick up. The next morning, I sat by my infinity pool, water lapping at my legs as the housekeeper unpacked a crate of artwork from storage. One piece, a vast oil painting of a storm breaking over the sea, caught the light in a way that felt almost fateful. Mia called again, and this time I answered. They're saying you're hiding because you're broke, she said, her voice hushed, like she was sharing a secret. I chuckled softly. Broke people don't live where the ocean brushes their windows. A pause. So it's true? You bought a place out there? I didn't buy it, Mia. I built it. That silence was sweeter than any applause. Later that night, I opened the glass doors of my master suite, the waves' rhythm filling the air. Somewhere far off, a boat's low hum drifted across the water. I pictured my parents in their cramped living room, the air thick with their self-righteousness, and I smiled. They wanted me gone? Fine. I was gone. But the void they demanded was becoming the loudest thing in their lives. Because when you cut someone off, you don't realize what they were holding back until the loss stings your own hands. It wasn't my parents who showed up first, it was my brother. I saw him from the balcony before the gate even opened, strutting with that same smirk he wore at every family gathering. The one that screamed he thought he was the smartest in the room. The security guard buzzed me. "Ma'am, he says he's family." I leaned against the railing, wind tugging at my hair, and replied, "Let him wait 10 minutes. When I finally met him, he was leaning against his car, scrolling his phone. "Nice place," he said, glancing up with the smug ease of someone who thinks it could all be his if he played nice. "What do you want, Adam?" He shoved his hands in his pockets. "Mom's worried. You know, Dad, they just want to talk." I raised an eyebrow. "Is this concern, or are you here to verify the rumors for them?" He didn't bother lying. "They're saying you got lucky, hit the lottery or something. I told them there's no way you earned this." I cut in and he shifted uneasy. Silence can weigh more than shouting. And I let it linger until he fiddled with his keys. Finally, he said, "They want to see you." I took a slow breath. "No, Adam, they want to see what I've got." His jaw clenched, and for a split second, I saw something real in his eyes. Not guilt, but envy. Then it vanished. Before he left, he glanced at the mansion again, his eyes lingering on the ocean view terrace. "You should come back for dinner sometime," he muttered. My smile held no warmth. "Maybe, but next time, tell them to come themselves. I'm done with messengers." As his car rolled out, I turned back to the house, sunlight glinting off the glass walls. I knew what was next. If Adam had seen this, my parents wouldn't be far behind. The tide was shifting, and they had no clue how far they'd drifted. They didn't call first, they just showed up. I heard tires crunching on the gravel drive while I was in the kitchen, the rich scent of fresh coffee mingling with the sea air through the towering windows. I caught sight of Dad stepping out of the car, shoulders squared like he was marching into a battle he intended to win. Mom followed, sunglasses on despite the cloudy sky, hiding her eyes as always when she didn't want to be read. The doorbell rang, its low, refined tone out of place with the life I'd left behind. I let it chime twice before opening the door. Dad's eyes swept the foyer, the marble, the glass, the light pouring in from the ocean. He didn't step inside. "So it's true," he said, no greeting, just an accusation dressed as fact. Mom's tone was colder. "You actually live here?" "I do," I said, leaning against the doorframe, casual but unshaken. They exchanged a glance, and in that brief silence, I felt the weight of all the years they'd judged me by their own narrow standards. The degrees I didn't have, the jobs they deemed unworthy, the life they assumed I'd never build. "Where'd you get the money?" Dad asked, his voice sharp enough to cut. I met his gaze, steady. From not wasting my life proving myself to people who never believed in me. Mom stepped forward, her tone softening just enough to be manipulative. "We could work together. You could invest in the family business, help us grow." It wasn't concern or curiosity, it was need. I looked past them to the horizon, waves rolling in. "Funny," I said. "When I needed family, you told me to get lost. Now you're at my door asking for help." Dad's jaw tightened, Mom's lips thinned. Neither spoke. "I think we're done here," I said, closing the door before they could respond. Their muffled voices faded as they retreated to their car, but I knew this wasn't over, just the first crack in the dam. The calls started the next morning, not hesitant like before, but relentless. Mom, then Dad, then Adam, even Mia. Each voicemail tried a new angle. "We're still your family. You're being unfair. You owe us a conversation." By day 4, they dropped the pretense of reconciliation. Dad's voice turned cold in one message. "You can't just shut us out. We made you. We raised you. We have a right to this." I played it twice, not out of pain, but because it was almost admirable how he rewrote history to cast himself as the victim. Then came the email, from Mom but reeking of Dad's influence. Long paragraphs about legacy, family pride, and keeping wealth in the bloodline. They weren't asking anymore. They were demanding. That evening, I sat by the fire pit on my terrace, the ocean vast and dark beyond the glass barrier. Flames danced, reflecting in my wine glass, and I thought of every time I'd silence myself to keep the peace. I'd built this life quietly, strategically, so I'd never have to beg at anyone's door. Yet here they were, pounding on mine. Tides come in waves, and I felt this one building. 3 weeks ago, they thought I was nothing. Now they circled like sharks. I closed my laptop, the final draft of a legal document glowing on the screen, not yet addressed to them. But when the time came, it would end this game for good. They didn't wait for an invitation this time. They slipped through the front gates behind a delivery truck, bold and entitled, certain I wouldn't turn them away with witnesses. I was on the patio when I heard the door swing open. My security team stepped aside. I told them not to stop my family, only to watch. Dad's voice hit first. We're not leaving until you listen. I stayed seated, letting the silence do its work. The ocean roared behind me, and I didn't turn when they stepped into view. Mom's sunglasses were off, her eyes scanning the terrace, the infinity pool, the teak furniture, the glass railing framing the horizon. Every detail seemed to stoke her frustration. Is this right? She demanded. Keeping us out of your life? When you threw me out, I cut in, my voice calm but cutting. You told me to get lost. Dad's jaw twitched. We were pushing you to be better. By calling me trash? I tilted my head. By saying I was nobody? They had no answer. The waves did. I stood slowly, the breeze catching my hair as I stepped closer. You didn't believe in me when I had nothing. You mocked me when I tried. Now that I have everything, you think it's yours. Mom glanced at Dad, but he stayed stiff. This isn't just about money, he said. It's about family. No, I replied softly. Family doesn't demand proof you're worth loving. Family doesn't vanish when you fail, only to show up when you succeed. Their silence stretched until it broke. Dad's voice wavered slightly. So this is it. I looked past them to the security guard by the door. Please show my guests out. As they left, Mom's voice drifted back, brittle and icy. You'll regret this. I almost smiled, because in 24 hours, regret wouldn't be mine. The next morning, the ocean was still, glassy, as if it held its breath. I sat in my study, sunlight flooding the mahogany desk, a single envelope beside my coffee, addressed to my parents in my handwriting. No stamp, no courier. My assistant had slipped it into their mailbox at dawn. I read a printed copy of the legal notice I'd prepared for weeks. One paragraph stood out, bold. Effective immediately, all prior agreements, financial ties and obligations between myself and the recipients are null and void. Any attempt to use my name, likeness, or reputation for personal gain will be met with legal action. Below, my signature, tied to companies they'd never heard of, properties they'd never seen, investments they couldn't fathom. I knew exactly when they read it. At 10:43 a.m., my phone lit up, 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad, 1 from Adam. By 10:58, a text from Mia. They're losing it. I closed my laptop and stepped onto the terrace, the salty breeze lifting my robe. Below, the ocean stretched endlessly, each wave glinting like polished steel. They'd called me trash, nobody, tried to shrink me to fit their box. But I'd built something else, something untouchable. Sipping my coffee, I felt no anger, no triumph, just peace. The loudest revenge is silence, the kind that doesn't need a megaphone, only presence. Far away, in that cramped living room where they once told me to get lost, they held a paper that made it clear. I was gone for good. And in the echo of that truth, I finally closed the door.